Thank you very much to all the questioners. Thank you very much, speakers, Barry, Frank and Tim. I don't know whether the Salvation Army realise it, but they are providing a great service to the Catholic Church. This is a refuge here when we're forbidden from meeting anywhere else. Thank God for the salvos. Thank you, Maria, for asking me to summarise today. I love impossible tasks. We have here, in fact, a glimpse of what might be. An enormous amount of work, in fact, went into this, particularly Maria's been mentioned, but Carol too, and a number of others. So, and it's been focused on conversation. It's not about answers. It's not about getting it all together. It's not about provoking anger or sorting people out or winning, or it's about continuing a conversation. Remember the link between conversation and conversion. They're two very, very closely related. 50 years ago, on January the 25th in 1959, Pope John the 23rd announced that he would call a council, and there were 17 cardinals gathered at that particular announcement. And Pope John's comment later on said they greeted his suggestion with impressive, devout silence. And when he wrote further to the cardinals worldwide, as well as those present, those absent, he got back, not all of them replied, but those who did reply and accepted the invitation to offer something, they almost all spoke with a cold and formal language, as though John the 23rd was suggesting something that was quite out of the question, actually, and it was very strange. And even Giovanni Battista Montini, who was the Cardinal Archbishop of Milan at the time, commented to a close friend of his and his spiritual director, Father Giulio Bevilacqua, Oratorian priest, "This holy old boy doesn't seem to realise what a hornet's nest he's stirring up." And Father Bevilacqua replied in a very wise way, "Don't worry, Don Battista. Lascia fare. Let it be. The Holy Spirit is still awake in the Church." Cardinal Leccaro, who was the Archbishop of Bologna, commented, "How dare he summon a council after 100 years? And only 3 months after his election. Pope John has been rash and impulsive. His inexperience and lack of culture brought him to this pass, to this paradox. An event like this will ruin his already shaky health and make the whole edifice of his supposed moral and theological virtues come tumbling down." They weren't the only ones who so spoke, but Cardinals Montini and Leccaro, like many others, later began to think differently about the council and about its work and about what the wise peasant Pope John had in fact proposed. Montini, when he became Pope Paul VI, in the face of considerable opposition, made the brave decision to actually continue the council. There was some doubt. He also wrote a treatise as his first encyclical on the need for dialogue. Cardinal Leccaro was largely responsible for the Church's liturgical reforms after the council. He was also a favourite target of the right wing, one right-wing writer saying, "After Martin Luther, the most formidable menace to the Church's unity and integrity is Cardinal Leccaro." And he nicknamed him the Termite. Welcome to the one holy Catholic. In essence, I believe Bishop Geoffrey Robinson's book is a continuation of what John the 23rd and people like Montini and Leccaro and many others was promoting. A critical self-reflection so that the Church can be more faithful to its mission. By definition, no event, no statement, no life, no book will ever be entirely adequate to this task. Firstly, it's a never-ending task. The Church is always a work in progress. We will never reach a point where we're entitled to say there's no more need for critical reflection, no more need for greater fidelity to the mission. Secondly, the Church is a mystery. It is and will always be a complex and ultimately incomprehensible mixture of the divine and the human, gift and task, grace and sin, of the charismatic and the institutional, of order and chaos, of the saint and the sinner. In life, and therefore in the church, paradoxes abound. Life is played out in the in-between. We're never quite there. A reviewer of the movie Sunday Bloody Sunday put it wisely back in 1971. Life is not so much beginnings and endings as its middles that don't measure up. And our happiness depends on how we come to terms with the pale reflections of our dreams. The acceptance of this melancholy fact does not necessarily lead to fatalism, though it might, nor does it necessarily lead to mediocrity, though it might. For someone whose life is centered in God, this inevitable in-betweenness of our lives can give rise to a sense of humour and a sense of mystery, a simple honesty and transparency, a spirit of humility and compassion, a desire to give and receive forgiveness, an inclination to patience and endurance, a disposition of hope and unrelenting questioning. When this response pervades our lives, you will also know firsthand what the great guides of the tradition called compunction. Bishop Robinson fits in here. His service of the people of God has been outstanding, marked by integrity, generosity, and a thoroughgoing professionalism in whatever he has done. He has been a leader in the academic community, a leader in pastoral care, a leader in education, and perhaps more importantly, a leader in those dark days of the 1990s when amidst great resistance he courageously pressed us to face what we had to face. I do not believe Bishop Robinson actually intended his book to be received as an academic work so much as a pastoral work. A continuation, as we have said, of what Pope John the 23rd himself intended in calling the council. That said, I do think the book has probably tried to cover too much ground. As a result, many areas of scholarly expertise have been brought into play, including systematic theology, ecclesiology, Christology, New Testament, Old Testament, anthropology, psychology, sociology, history, spirituality, and canon law. The treatment of issues pertaining to these fields of scholarship is not always substantial or precise or well-referenced. At times it is open to serious criticism, in fact. Today we've heard from somebody whose specialty is ecclesiology, Father Barry Brundell. And Barry reminds us of the biblical roots and the apostolic tradition and the boundaries that there are to what we find there in the Gospels and in the Acts of the Apostles.